It's your girl, Hope Your TV Movie Bestie, and I watch good shit. And I just got done watching episode 6 of Rooster. Now, this episode said we're going to give y'all a little bit of depth. We're not just here for the hee-hee ha-has. You know, we won't make you think. So I particularly enjoyed this episode, although who I am not particularly enjoying is Archie. Archie is the villain. He's got to go. I'm so sick of him, but I'll get into that a little later. Okay, so the episode opens with Crystal and Greg still having sex. Now, I'm a little bit torn by this because y'all know Crystal is a wild one. She just say whatever she want to say. So I was like, okay, she just wants sex, no strings attached, nothing wrong with that. Get yours, sis. So I was all for her and Greg hooking up until Greg realizes that he really wants Dylan, because y'all know I'm rooting for them. But in this episode, so Greg, you know, the last episode, his ex-wife was there. That was a whole thing. He still got feelings for her. She definitely don't. And so, you know, he tells Crystal, like, it's so good to just have sex, booty call with no strings attached. Now, Crystal was a little bit hurt by this. And I was shocked because I said, girl, I thought you was just here for a good time. Like, oh, you trying to be here for a long time. Okay, I missed that. And obviously so did Greg. Then we go to Katie and Archie. They are also still having sex. Now, this is the one that pisses me off because Katie, she has sex with him and then she feels icky. And she's just like, you don't feel no type of way? And Archie's like, nah, I feel good. I'm like, okay. Now he's still having sex with Katie and has not told Sonny. Sonny's still running around trying to get an internship. She's still noticing that Archie is pulling away, but not really sure what's going on. They not talking about that. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Archie, you're the problem, sir. You've got to go. Okay, then we deal with Tommy. So, you know, Tommy is one of Greg's students. And Tommy is late on his rent, and so his roommate has kicked him out. He's falling asleep in class, and, you know, Greg is like, you ain't got nowhere to live? Well, look, why don't you just come stay with me for a few days until you kind of get yourself together, back on track. So, you know, Tommy's like, okay, cool. All right, then we go back to Greg. Now, he shows up in some class Crystal is in. And so he's like, hey, what you doing later? And she's like, you know, nothing. And so he says, you want to have sex? And Crystal is like, look, I'm a grown woman. And if you want all of this, and she goes, and if you want to get inside of all of this, she's like, you're going to have to treat me like a lady. You know, take me on a date. Let's properly date. And I agree with her, but at the same time, I was like, Crystal, you never presented that from the beginning. You made it seem like you was cool with just booty calls, and now you want to be dated. So just maybe you should have made that clear from the beginning. Greg, he says, okay, they make plans. They're going to go out on a real date that evening. Now, Archie, he shows up to talk to Katie. This fool offers sex to her. Talking about he writing a book and his editor gave him no notes. So he's ready to celebrate with sex. Archie. So Katie, she's like, you know what? You still fucking Sonny? Archie got the nerve to get offended. He's like, what? And he said, you know what? I'm never fucking y'all on the same day in the same 22-hour time period. And Katie's like, what? No. And so Archie then proceeds to say, look, I want our marriage. I want to fight for us, but you're still deciding. Like, you're not sure whether you want to stay together, you want to fully divorce, whatever. So in the meantime, while you're deciding, I feel like I have the right to pursue a possible relationship with the mother of my child. Archie, are you fucking crazy? Like, no, sir. You need to make a decision. Number one, get away from Archie. Everybody. Katie, you need to file paperwork. Go ahead and divorce Archie. Archie sucks. He just told you he's keeping you around as an option. And if y'all don't work out, he just gonna go back with Sonny. Like, no, that's not fair to either one of y'all. You need to file paperwork and be done with this man. Sonny, you need to go ahead and get your paperwork together for child support. I know you have not had your baby yet, but girl, po thing, you are having a baby with him, and you know the deed is done. So just go ahead and get your paperwork together for child support, because Archie is terrible. Like, no, everybody get away from Archie. All right, now Katie also finds out in this episode that Zoe, you know, one of her students, she's responsible for the whole For Katie campaign. And so she's like, Zoe, why are you doing this? Like, I didn't ask you to do this. I don't need you to do this. She's like, and matter of fact, it's a constant reminder of all the bad mistakes that I'm making. I want you to stop this immediately. So Zoe is really offended, and she's just like, oh, okay, sure. So now Greg going on this date. It's nighttime. Y'all, Greg is late. He's already running late. He can't find his toothbrush. He can't get his outfit together. So he finally get himself ready. He goes out. He done bought this little bike scooter type thing. So he's on that. And the cop pulls him over. And the cop is like, you know what? I looked it up, and this ain't supposed to be on the road. Like, you're not supposed to be driving around on the real highways and roads with this. Like, you got to get rid of this. And so Greg is like, I really don't have time for this. Like, I'm late for my date. And so the cop tells him, he said, but you know what? I'm going to give you a get out of jail card. Greg has taken over as like assistant coach to the hockey coach, because, you know, he's a drunk and he's just wilding out at every practice, every game, everything. And so Greg has agreed to, like, you know, work with him to kind of, hey, bro, chill. Well, it turns out that's the cop's son. And he's like, you know, he was going to lose his job and he really needs that. And so he's like, I just appreciate you working with him. So I'm going to let you go. Go ahead on your little scooter. Go ahead and go on your little date. And Greg is like, we could have wrapped this up like 10 minutes ago. So yes, I'm going to go ahead and leave. So he goes. He's extremely late for his date. And baby Crystal said, I'm not here. Like, you here by yourself because you late. You didn't call. You didn't say nothing. Now, he tried to call, but his phone wasn't charged. But whatever. So she's gone. Greg is like, damn. Okay. So Sonny and Wally are talking. You know, he's like her mentor. And he said, so I've been checking on your internship with the biotech firm. And he said, you're not going to get the internship. And she's like, dang, because she keeps not getting these internships. And, you know, she's getting ready to graduate soon. And so he said, you're not going to get the internship because they ready to hire you. Like, they want you right now. And she's like, what? Like, for real? And he's like, yeah. He's like, this is big. And so she's like, yeah, this is big. So she takes a moment. She's like, I just need to breathe for a little bit. And so he's like, wait, what's up? Like, this is what you've been wanting. And she said, I know, but if I take this job, I've got to leave. And that means moving away from Archie. Good. And she's just like, I don't know if I'm ready to do that. You know, we having a baby. Archie ain't thinking about you, Sonny. You need to think about you and your unborn child. You need to do what's best for y'all. Like, fuck Archie. So anyways, Wally's like, okay, you know, cool. I understand. Dylan, she's the interim dean while he's in the hospital recovering from his heart attack, all this. So Dylan is having a blast in her new role. Like, she didn't want to do it at first, but she's doing it. She feels like she's really helping people. She's really making a difference. And so she's really starting to settle into her position. So she's telling Greg this because, you know, her and Greg live next door to each other on campus housing. And so every morning they like walk to school together. So she's telling Greg about this, and Greg's like, oh my gosh, you're drunk with power. He's like, I love it. And so he shows her his new little bike. And she's like, Greg, this is the coolest thing ever. And he's like, I know, right? And so in the very beginning of the episode, he was telling Katie about his bike. And she was like, Dad, if you ever meet a woman who thinks this is as cool as you do, never let her go. And he said, I know, but it'll never happen. And I'm like, Dylan. So this is why I want them to get together. Okay, so Greg, he then goes to school, and he goes to Crystal to apologize to her. So she ain't trying to hear it. She's like, whatever, you didn't call, you didn't say nothing, you obviously didn't care. And so she's like, this is not how you act when you're starting something real. And again, I'm like, oh, Crystal, you didn't establish those rules in the beginning. Greg and nobody else knew that this was trying to be a real relationship. This seemed like just sex. So I feel bad for her because she clearly wants more. But at the same time, I'm just like, girl, whatever rules you start playing with, you got to keep playing the game with those rules. Or if you want to change it up, then you got to go get a new partner. So I hate this for her because Greg is like, do what now? Like, he's so confused because he's just like, I'm still processing my feelings for my ex. And now you talking about a relationship. I thought we was just having sex. So a little bit weird there. Now, Greg and Tommy, they really bonded. They living together. So Katie, she comes over and she's talking to Greg. And she's like, maybe teaching is not for me. And he's like, what? You're great at your job. And she's like, no. She's like, I really hurt Zoe's feelings. And she said, part of the whole reason that Zoe started this is because she, feels some type of way about me. And I never should have opened up to her. I never should have told her all this stuff about Archie. Now she feels protective of me. And I just went too far with my students. And so Greg is like, I feel like opening up and being close to my students is like the best thing that has happened to me. And Tommy's like, hell yeah. And so she's like, why is he here? And he's like, I live here now. So she's just like, okay. So I agree with Greg to an extent. I do think, there is value in being close with your students. But at the same time, I do feel like you need to have boundaries because I do feel like Katie opening up like her whole marriage to her students, like that was a little too much. Like, girl, these ain't graduate students. Like, they still in college. They still really young. Like, and I don't know. I feel like that's just like that should have been a clear boundary. But okay, here we are. So now Greg, he's hanging out with Tommy and his friends. They've come over, they having a cool little bro night or whatever. And they start talking about Crystal. Now, Greg don't tell them Crystal's name, but he's telling them the situation. And so Greg is like, I really think she wants more, but I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. And so one guy says, dude, do not catch feelings. He's like, because you catch feelings, you're going to be caught up in all kind of stuff that you don't even care about because you like this girl. Then another dude is like, well, I don't see what the problem is if you're just having fun. Like, what's wrong with sex? And to that I say, nothing. That's great. Let's everybody get it in and have a good time. But establish that from the beginning. When the rules aren't clear and some people fucking for fun and some people fucking for love and then it gets confusing, like that's the problem. So yeah. And so then Tommy's just like, well, how's the sex? Like, is it good? And so Greg's like, I'm not going there with y'all. But he does admit that he likes her, but he's like, I don't want to lead her on. Good job, Greg. Then leave her alone. Like, if you know that she clearly wants more and you're either not ready to give that to her or you don't want to give that to her, leave her alone. Because the more you continue to interact with her, especially in a sexual way, it's very confusing. Leave her alone. So what does Greg do? He texts her and say, you want to have dinner? And she's like, yeah. And so I'm like, Lord have mercy. Okay, so then it's like the next day. And Tommy is talking to Greg. And Greg is like, what's up with your parents? And so Tommy says that him and his parents had an agreement that as long as he keeps his grades above a C average, that they will pay his rent. And so he's like, they ain't there. And so that's why they stopped paying my rent, which is why I'm behind on my rent, which is why my roommate kicked me out. And so Greg is like, oh, well, you gotta go back home. Tommy says they want me to move back home until my grades get up. And he's like, but I'm having a blast here. And so Greg is just like, nah, you made a promise and you gotta go on back home. And he's like, but I will help you come up with a study plan. I help you get back on track with your grades so that you can come on back. And so Tommy's just like, you would do that for me? And he's like, yeah, we bros. So he's like, okay. So then Katie, she goes to Zoe. She apologizes, tells her she's sorry. She appreciates what she's doing for her. But it was just like a lot and something she wasn't aware of. And so Zoe's like, you're my favorite teacher. Like, I relate to you. And that's why I was doing this. I know you're not perfect, but I just felt like I was trying to protect you. And so, they have a little moment and they're like, okay, cool. Now, just as Dylan starts setting up her office, remember I told you she's loving her new job. She's getting excited. She's starting to put stuff up on the wall. She done got some plants. Here come Walt. And he's like, I got something to talk to you about. And she's like, what? In comes the dean. Alive, healthy, well. And she's like, wait, what? And so he's like, yep, I'm back. And he's like, this is cute what you done did, but you can go ahead and get rid of this. Like, I'm here. And she's just like, oh, yikes. So then Crystal and Greg, they have a nice little dinner. They go home. She's like, I'm ready for dessert, which is sex. So, they having sex. They going at it at home. And he goes in to get Gatorade because he's like, we need to hydrate. And so he goes in, shirt on, dick out, and forgetting that he has a roommate right now, Tommy. So he's talking to Crystal. Crystal's talking. And Tommy walks in and he's just like, what the fuck is going on? And of course, he hears Crystal. He knows Crystal. And he's just like, oh my gosh. So that's the end of the episode. But anyways, I think this is getting good in terms of like going beyond just being a comedy. I'm enjoying that. Again, Archie's got to get up out of there and leave those women alone. Greg, please do not hurt Crystal. Just like leave her alone and go ahead and be with Dylan because y'all actually like work, like each other. But Greg's got to figure out that he likes Dylan. So there's a struggle. And also probably process whatever his feelings are about his ex-wife. So maybe therapy. I don't know. But that's where I'm at with the show. What do y'all think? What are your thoughts? You know the deal. I'm on all the socials. Your TV Movie Bestie. Like, subscribe, and follow. And I will see y'all on the next show in the next episode. Bye, besties.